Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to the Russo Hockey Show. This is our hockey show, our NHL and Wild show at TalkNorth.com. Subscribe to this show and the network at your favorite podcast app. That's always the best way to listen. We do appreciate everyone who's listening. We're going to continue to do shows. We will try to make it entertaining. I don't know why we would start now, but we're going to actually try to make it entertaining. We'll talk hockey. We'll also talk some other stuff, which leads me, Michael, to the first and best question I received today in the Twitter mailbag, and that is from Kevin O. What is Russo doing to entertain himself during our stay-at-home time? Does he interview himself? And that sounds ridiculous. And yet, as soon as he said that, I could picture you just as you were like an aspiring high school journalist interviewing yourself just to stay sharp.
No, definitely haven't done that. I've gotten into a couple fights with my Alexa device. She seems to be hard of hearing these days. I win every time, but unfortunately, my blood pressure rises about. It's pretty certifiably crazy.
What do you fight about with Alexa?
Well, she just doesn't hear me well. I mean, I have the same. Like yesterday, I asked to put on "Trampled by Turtles," and she put on some classical song. I don't even know what the heck that was. So I'm starting to lose it. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Michael, by the way, what you need to say when you're in a relationship and it's not going well, you don't say she doesn't hear me, you say she doesn't understand me.
That's true. She definitely doesn't understand me. A lot of walks, a lot of phone calls just because I'm working on so many stories that kind of command the voices of a lot of people. So it's been interesting. We did a Wild fan survey that'll come out tomorrow. That was really fun exercise as well. Kind of learning what Wild fans think of, who their current favorite players are and all-time favorite players. And, the one thing I will say is the survey is very positive for the Wild. I think that actually the organization, which I'm sure a lot of times would get a little nervous with something like this, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. The one interesting thing about it, not to scoop myself, is that the prospects, that fans are excited about are all over the map, which to me shows you that Wild fans are starting to buy into the fact that there's several prospects to be excited about, not just Kirill Kaprizov. So that was probably the most interesting thing about that. But what am I doing with myself? Watching a lot of TV. I'm starting to get offended by my Netflix app. My Netflix always seems to ask me, "Are you still watching?" Which I think it's judging me.
I get that too. I know, and they are judging us.
Sorry,
they are judging us. It's like, and it's basically Netflix saying, "Get your ass off the couch and move around."
Exactly what's going on. Like, yes, I'm watching Tiger King still. Please,
Netflix is going to start rating us. It's going to go you're just a 2-star TV watcher. You're really sedentary. You don't move, you don't shift around when you're watching. You watch stupid crap. I mean,
yeah.
All right. Thanks to our sponsors, Grey Duck Vodka and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. Please keep in mind all the people who have been sponsoring us over the year who basically had to take a little hiatus here because their businesses are shut down, whatever, including Twill and Fixology. We'll tell you more about them as we get going here. It does feel like it's interesting you mentioned that about kind of the optimism about Wild prospects and all that. I don't want to make it too simplistic, but it does feel like Kevin Fiala's rise has energized the fan base.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, let's put it this way. I don't want to tell you, but I mean, Wild fans love him. I don't want
Yeah.
to tell you who won the survey of favorite current player, but it was surprising. For somebody that was after he got here last year in the first month and a half, really struggled, was a turnover machine. The first month of this season got a lot of tough love from Bruce Boudreau, a lot of tough love to the point that he was scratched a couple times, wasn't getting a lot of ice time. And then all of a sudden the calendar switched to November and he just started to take off. He had a little bit of a lull there in late December and January, like a lot of Wild players, but then all of a sudden he became an absolute stud, a star for that matter in the month of February. And so now the goal for him is to turn 5 weeks of great hockey at the end into 5 or 6 months of great hockey next year. I mean, that is the next thing. He put together one of the most consistent streaks of great Wild play that I've ever covered. And now can he do that and be a true star perennially, like you see every single year with the Crosbys, with the Connor McDavids, with the Alex Ovechkins? I'm not saying that he's in that category, but that's what sets those guys apart from other scorers in the league, is that these guys do it on an every single night basis. They are an absolute game breaker on an every night basis. And that's something that we started to see from Kevin Fiala every single shift, really, for the last 5 weeks of the season. So, I give him a lot of credit. He handled this season maturely. He could have really gotten down in the dumps and sulked and been angry after Bruce Boudreau did what he did to him in the first month of the season. But I think I've said this before. One of the first calls that Bruce Boudreau got, according to Bruce Boudreau, I should say, one of the first calls that Bruce Boudreau got after he was fired by the Wild was from Kevin Fiala thanking him for all he's done,
Wow.
which just shows you assuming that's true. I actually need to preface that because I never actually confirmed that with Kevin. But assuming that's true, that says even more so about this guy's maturity from a player that even by his own mouth was not a mature professional hockey player 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago when he was playing for Dean Evison in Milwaukee. The one thing that both them say is that there was a lot of tough learning lessons there. And Kevin says, I did a big story on Kevin when we were in Vancouver. I'm not even talking about the story that I wrote at the beginning of February, where he talked about, where he really discussed, wanting to be a star. I'm talking about in mid-February, I think around February 19th, I talked to Kevin Fiala about some of the lessons that he learned from Dean Evison when they were together in Milwaukee, and Kevin admits that he was a very different person when he played for the Milwaukee Admirals.
Twitter question, and maybe the most important question we will ever answer, from Bruce Siski. You have to get rid of Russo's filter, Russo's slacks, or radio fallness. Who goes and why?
Wait, say that again?
If you were going to get rid of either Russo's filter, Russo's slacks, or radio fallness, who would go and why?
Are these their Twitter personalities, or are these them as people? Because I wouldn't want to get rid of any of them.
Okay, well, let's do Twitter personality,
beings.
since you won't admit that you don't want to get rid of them as human beings.
That's still a tough question.
No, it's not. It's really not. It's the easiest question.
I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean. As much as I joke around with Russo's slacks, I do find him funny.
He is funny.
And I really do like Russo's filter personally. I actually know him. Russo's slacks I have met once. And fallness is fallness. I do like fallness.
I thought you weren't going to be mean.
I'm just kidding. I like fallness. I actually think he's one of the smartest, wittiest people I've ever met. He is as quick-witted. His comebacks, like live, I'm not even talking on Twitter, are just, it's very, very funny. He's very intelligent. And he and I just like to kind of go after each other. Some people, I'm sure, out there think that, boy, these two must hate each other. At least from my perspective, that's not true. Although I did get a little pleasure in my heart when I saw him bleeding down the leg yesterday from apparently what his dog did to him. That kind of made me. I guess there is kind of a love-hate relationship, because even when he like a couple
cheering
weeks
on
ago,
him bleeding.
Yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, I think, or a month ago, he had to like sleep in his car because he couldn't get into his house or something, and I kind of got humor out of that as well. So maybe there is something there.
I might have to get him on the podcast network.
Yep.
He might be as big a mess as you. He might be really entertaining in that way.
Yep. By the way, I'm using this podcast to also clean up my office and pay some bills. So if
I could believe me, we know you're not paying attention.
if that becomes distracting,
we know, Michael. Yeah. We've known for a long time.
Oh my God!
Actually,
I'll tell you what I'm doing right now is I'm paying my estimated taxes for 2020. Ugh.
That's the problem with being a millionaire. The taxes are high.
Yeah, my accountant last week got to hear me have a conniption fit on the phone. So
you feel free to relive that now if you like.
Yeah, no. I just I saw what I owed to the government and what I have to now pay in estimated taxes next year, and I had a genuine just freak out. Are you kidding me? So anyway.
I just like pausing every once in a while to see if you'll keep going.
I'm sure. I'm looking at my estimated tax coupons for this upcoming year, and I'm honestly starting to sweat.
And
maybe it's just not worth doing the freelance
or working at all.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, none of us might be working at some point here if we don't get going.
Very good point. And, this is the kind of hockey analysis that Grey Duck wanted to sponsor. Hopefully they're going to still be with us next week. We do appreciate Grey Duck's sponsorship. It's a Minnesota company. We had Chad Greenway on our prep show with John Millay last week. Some really insightful stuff about youth sports and high school sports and his experiences. Really good stuff from Chad, who is involved deeply with Grey Duck Vodka. Grey Duck Vodka, Minnesota's vodka. If you're like me, you don't mind getting a little extra help through the pandemic.
When we asked you to get the duck out, wow, did you respond? Grey Duck Vodka is now in over 1,500 locations and expanding every day. This is Chad Greenway, and I just want to say thank you for making Grey Duck Minnesota's vodka. With the wonderful ingredients from Minnesota farmers, Grey Duck is gluten-free and has won 3 gold medals for taste. For all upcoming events and a list of locations carrying Grey Duck, head to greyduckspirits.com.
Please drink responsibly. Grey Duck Spirits, LLC, Lakeville, Minnesota.
Get the duck out.
All right, next Twitter question.
Actually, you want me to just let me change subjects to one thing that's going to also make Wild fans just freak. But as we all know, the way that this thing is going, it's very unlikely that there is a rest of a regular season. Right. So then now they're trying to figure out how they would restart things, right? Mm-hmm. Whether or not they would have some sort of play-in or whether or not they would just have to start the playoffs, so then they would just have a lottery. And if that's the case, the Wild, any way you cut it, probably don't make the playoffs. Their point percentage, they are literally 3 or 4 thousandths away from being in the top 8. At least last time I did the calculation. That's off the top of my head. So in other words, essentially 1 point away from making the playoffs in points percentage. Even if they, Frank Saravelli from TSN did a story today that said probably the fairest thing to do is to cut everybody's amount of games down to 68 because that's what everybody's played in the league. And because a couple teams have played 71, a couple teams have played 68. Well, guess what? The Wild have played 69. If you go down to 68, that's the LA loss. Mm-hmm. And they, again, don't make the playoffs. So it's it's not looking good if that's the way that things go here. Yeah.
And you know what? It's a reminder that every game actually does matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they just don't play like idiots the first couple of weeks of the season, they're comfortably in.
Actually, if you're listening to this podcast, tweet me if you'd even be interested in reading this story. But I was starting to jot things down. I was thinking of doing a story that basically says how, it's always cliche every year when you say, oh, you just hope that this lost point doesn't cost them a playoff spot. Mm-hmm. Well, right now, one lost point and at any point in the season cost the Wild potentially a playoff spot. So I was thinking of doing a story that says, where did this season go wrong, and go and identify 8 or 9 or 10 key moments in the season where they did blow a point. But you tweet me if you're listening to this, if that's even a story that would be something you'd want to read, or if it's just like, don't even stress me out even more. But I kind of actually think it would be interesting to kind of go back and look back at some of these key moments in games where the Florida game that they gave up the winning goal with a couple seconds left, or that, an overtime game where somebody screwed up a shift and it wound up going against them, things like that.
Yeah. I'd read it. I think maybe we'll see. From KG on Twitter, have you FaceTimed your mother during the time off? There are a lot of questions like this today.
Yeah. I'm not a big FaceTimer. I've talked to her daily. She's the other thing. Not only is she dealing with isolation because obviously my brother doesn't want to have. My brother and her live probably 3 or 4 or 5 miles apart. But my brother doesn't want to have his kids potentially put her in dire straits. So
Right.
they're doing a lot of FaceTime with my brother and his family, and I'm hoping that my brother will bring maybe the boys over and they can kind of from the bottom of the balcony like Romeo and Juliet. She could talk to the grandkids. But my mother, not only is she dealing with the isolation that's making her really upset, but she's got a major degenerative back issue right now that she's dealing with some pain. So trying to, the problem is that you can't really have stuff like surgery right now because who's
Right.
going to take care of you? So it's scary.
Oh, well, I hope Barbara's okay. That's horrible to hear about. MJ was going to ask about your mom. You just answered it. She also asked, what artists are on our playlist as we try to get through this?
Well, Trampled by Turtles. I've been listening to a lot of Judah and the Lion, a lot of REM, a lot of Death Cab by Cutie. Listened to like Imagine Dragons the other day, and who else? People
I
like
probably
that.
told you this before, but you have friends in the music community with Trampled by
Yeah.
Turtles and a bunch of other people. I used to hang out with a couple of guys from the Jayhawks and have met some people from Soul Asylum. We both kind of have the music community connections. Your friend and my friend, Jeff Schultz from Atlanta, he and a couple of sports writers are good friends with Mike Mills, the bassist for REM.
Love REM.
And I just went over there like when Jeff worked at the Atlanta Journal, they always just rented a house for Masters Week, and I'd go over and have a drink with them or dinner with them. And Mike Mills would just be hanging out doing like the fantasy golf draft and all that. He's just the coolest, most laid back guy.
Yeah, when I used to be in, this is going to tell you how much of an REM geek I was when I was younger. But when we used to have days, I used to work at a summer camp in Cleveland, Georgia, which is up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And on days off, a bunch of us, you go get a hotel in Atlanta, but a lot of times we would actually get a hotel in Athens. And we used to actually go over to like Michael Stipe's home and like basically stalk it, like go through his trash basically. And they always heard these wives' tales, and a lot of bands do this. But we always heard the wives' tales that every now and then REM, when they weren't touring, they would just go play this one bar in Athens, Georgia at like 10:30 at night under a pseudonym name, not being REM. So we used to always go to this bar and sneak in there because we were all underage and basically pray to God that we would see REM basically play a set, and we never got to do that. But I've always been a huge REM fan. Other artists I've been listening to a lot lately are bands like Counting Crows, who I do know, Adam Duritz, but like the Avett Brothers I love. I started listening to Dashboard Confessional again. The lead singer is from my hometown, Boca Raton. Stuff like that. I like Guster. I've been actually going through back listening to a lot of the bands that I listened to years and years and years ago, like Langhorne Slim is somebody that I like, Lord Huron, OAR, people like that, bands like that.
I've been watching a lot of music documentaries. Springsteen's always my favorite artist to go watch an old concert of, and with YouTube, you can find him performing almost any song ever written in almost any country in the world. Him and Eddie Vedder and Tom Morello doing Highway to Hell in Australia is amazing. He did Staying Alive with full strings and horns in Australia. I mean, you can find that stuff. But really, the two bands that I've been gravitating toward, just because it's a different, Springsteen's rock and roll, and this is kind of a time when we want something a little more soothing. I've been listening to Little Feat, Steely Dan, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, and some old Sinatra.
By the way, you want to hear something kind of controversial? Okay. One of the things I've watched, either it was on Netflix or Amazon Prime the other night, was the Springsteen Broadway show, and I hated it.
Really?
I didn't like it. It just wasn't my thing. It was him basically preaching up there for 3 hours. Not preaching politically, because I know that a lot of people there are some people that just don't like him because of his political affinities. But I mean, just the way he gets up there, like he's a priest. Yeah. Like it just was hard to take. Maybe it was because it was like at midnight and I wanted to go to bed. But you know who I listened to the other yesterday that is just beautiful is Iris Dement. So Iris, John Prine died.
Yeah.
And I didn't know really anything too much about him. But they played something I saw either on TV or something had a duet that he played with Iris Dement years ago. And I love Iris Dement because Iris Dement plays a song that Dave Simonette covers called Our Town that is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you haven't heard the Trampled by Turtles or Dave Simonette's cover of Our Town that they play in Duluth every year when they're up in concert there, just go on Trampled by Turtles cover album that they just put out, and they put it on there, and it's just incredible. So I just kind of like last night when I went for a walk, I just put on Iris Dement and listened to her, and her voice is just absolutely unbelievable.
I will say this about the Springsteen thing. I haven't watched it, the Netflix version. My wife and I went and saw it on Broadway, and in person, it was really powerful.
Yeah, a couple other little music things. So you saw it on Broadway, so
yes.
It's probably the same thing. They just filmed this from his Broadway show. So then maybe it's something. I'm sure if you're there and it's Springsteen, there's an incredible. There's probably a high being there, and I'm sure I would have loved it a lot better. Like I saw Springsteen. It's funny. So I have a buddy that used to be the executive producer of The Daily Show, and Springsteen was one of the guests once. And I went there to The Daily Show to go see this, and I was all excited. And it was Springsteen. I guess he wrote like a children's book years ago.
Yes,
and that's what he was. That's what he was a guest on. I was like going there to see him sing.
Right.
And I've seen Springsteen at XL Energy Center, and he's awesome in concert. He's like nobody works harder in a band. A couple other things that recommend. If you are an Avett Brothers fan, the Avett Brothers documentary that's on HBO is so good. It's just awesome. I've watched it like 100 times. I'm not kidding. It's really, really good. And then the other concert that I watched the other night that's really gripping is U2's concert a month after the Paris terrorist attacks, where remember they were supposed to play in Paris the night of the terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unbelievable. So I would highly recommend that.
Cool. All right, let's get back to some more hockey after we thank Tony Hoagland.
By the way, there's just one other thing. So Colin Hanks does this incredible documentary that people have to see on Eagles of Death Metal, which is the band that played the night of the terrorist attack that was on stage. And part of this U2 documentary or the concert is at the end of the concert, he brings Eagles of Death Metal on stage to sing a couple of songs, and it is like it's hard to keep your keep from bawling. There's no doubt about it. If you have not seen the Colin Hanks documentary on Eagles of Death Metal, it is something you have to watch. It is so incredible, and I think that's on HBO as well.
Cool. All right. Hey, thank you to Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent, my State Farm agent, Michael Russo, State Farm agent. You still need insurance. Hoaglund. Check them out.
Every team knows that the two-point play can be a winning move. That's why State Farm agent Tony Hoagland and his team are here to help you go for two by combining your home and auto insurance. It's a great call that saves you time and money. So go for the win and score savings by combining your home and auto. It's just another way we're here to help life go right. Call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at 763-421-4900 or online at champlaininsurance.com.
Also, I want to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, for holding this thing together as we're all doing remote shows. Please follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod. And again, the best way to listen to this or any other shows in terms of accessibility and listening quality, sound quality, all this stuff, subscribe at your favorite podcast app. Just subscribe to the whole network. You get a bunch of cool outdoors content as well. And of course, Krasinski, Malay, Smalley, Cheryl Reeve, and everybody else. Do you have anything else you want, or should I go back to more Twitter questions?
No, I just saw that Governor Walz extended the stay-at-home order to May 4th.
Mm-hmm. Right before my birthday. From Jonathan Brill, with the NFL making the decision to go virtual with the draft, do you think the NHL will follow suit?
Yeah, definitely. They've already canceled the Montreal draft, and I've got to think they will.
Johnson from Wisconsin, another music question. He said there's an article way back about so many of the prime great musicians being 60, 70, 80, including Springsteen. And with the passing of John Prine, how would you feel who do you think would be the biggest loss based on what they mean to us musically? Of course, my answer is easy. Springsteen's kind of my number one. Is there an older artist that you just can't bear the thought of losing, Michael?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's such a grim question, but as I said, when I was really young, I mean, I was a huge Billy Joel fan. I was a huge REM fan. Those are probably my two favorite bands when I was super young. Saw Billy Joel in concert with Elton John once at Miami Arena. So I've seen REM play. I haven't seen them in years, but I've seen REM play, God, I mean, a gazillion times. I used to be just a big, I was a big Smashing Pumpkins fan, big Pearl Jam fan as a kid, bands like that.
From St. Paul MN guy.
What were your first records? Do you remember?
Well, I really started off with kind of pop and hair metal. And I mean, at the era I was growing up, the first things I remember buying were stuff like Daryl Hall and John Oates.
I had Hall and Oates.
Yeah, I mean, and it was really good, well-crafted pop. That was kind of my entry point. And then I kind of, as I got a little older, I started going toward the Styx, REO, Speedwagon, Rush, kind of St. Louis. Basically, up to a certain age, I my life might as well have been Wayne's World. It was everybody had long hair. Everybody wore torn jeans. Everybody sat in the basement, played guitar. Nobody played bass. Nobody sang, but everybody played a guitar. And we all listened to kind of that pop, hairy pop, Yeah. And then one night in a car, I heard a saxophone. And I was like, okay, there's more than just REO Speedwagon in the world. And it really changed my musical taste forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine, I remember records as a kid. I had like Bon Jovi, Thompson Twins, Hall & Oates, Steve Perry, not even Journey. Remember Oh Sherry?
Yeah.
I had Steve Perry. I had Madonna. I had Michael Jackson. There's one band that's escaping me too that was very popular that I can't remember either. So you know what I got to get is a record player because I always get these gifts when Dead Man Winter or Trampled by Turtles comes out with a new album. It's really generous of them, but Dave Simonette will always give me an actual LP, a record of the album. And I have those just sitting here. And then one of his buddies that has a band in Duluth, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He has a band that he is also in the mail put in and sent me records. So I have like 7 or 8 records sitting in my office that it'd be kind of cool to just put on the record player one night and listen while listen to music,
Yeah, and there's something warm about an actual LP on a good turntable that says a warmth to it and ambience to it you don't get digitally. And I highly recommend getting yourself a turntable.
Yeah, no
From
doubt.
St. Paul MN guy, are Fiala and the Swedes skating while they're at home in far less restrictive Sweden?
I don't think that they're really allowed if that ever got out. These players are supposed to be quarantined. These players are not supposed to be doing stuff like that.
From El Deuterino.
The only players that are technically allowed to be skating, I mean, if you have a rink in your backyard, you can, but it's not like I don't think Ryan Suter could have organized skates at the Madison rink. I don't think, the only guys that can be skating are if you're like Carson Soucy technically would be allowed to skate at Tria because he's rehabbing an injury. But Tria doesn't even have ice anymore. So Soucy went back to Edmonton, so maybe he's skating there if he's allowed. But only guys like Seth Jones the other day put out a video of him skating at Nationwide Arena on the practice rink that's attached to Nationwide, and like fans like freaked out. Like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be allowed. And then, but the reality is I actually think he did it to kind of troll people because I think he knew what the reaction was going to be. But he is allowed to skate as long as it's alone. Yep.
So El Deuterino asked, could Kaprizov join the Wild after April 30th for the regular season finale if there was such a thing? Not going to happen, right?
Wait, say that again?
He asked, could Kaprizov join the Wild after April 30th for the regular season finale?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Al Thompson asked, do you see pro sports returning without a vaccine? Which is a really good question.
I don't know. That's to me the biggest thing here is like, That to me is my biggest concern about next season. It's like this
Mhm.
thing is not just going to magically disappear. It's going to crop up again, even if we hit a plateau here. And if all of a sudden professional athletes test positive for coronavirus or COVID-19 next year, are we all of a sudden going to go through this again where we shut down and isolate and all that stuff? There's got to be a point where we sort of, get enough people vaccinated and then we live with it. I'm excited. I obviously am not a doctor or medically understand this stuff. But I'm excited about all this talk about this antibody testing that's going to eventually be released here, hopefully early this summer, where we're going to at least be able to test ourselves to see if we have already been exposed to this virus and maybe just never knew it. And if that's the case, then allegedly, the way I understand it is that you are immune to it, and then by that case, you could slowly but surely have those type of people that have shown that they've already had this virus return to the workforce. And now if I'm around you and you've had it and I've had it and we never even knew it, then we can't infect each other. I could be getting this totally wrong and people are going to be freaking out, but that's the way that I understand it from the presidential press conferences the last couple of days. So hopefully that's the way there's got to be a point where we're going to have to get back to society here. And there's got to be, whether it's a vaccine or these antibody tests, and medication that we know is treating this stuff. But that's to me the scariest part of this is that even if life comes back as we know it, what's going to happen when it inevitably returns? That's why we have flu vaccines every year, because the flu mutates and changes, and so you get a new vaccine to make sure that you protect it from the new strains that are out there, again, the way that I understand it. And so this COVID-19 I think is going to be upon us for a while.
Agreed. From Ryan Stonebreaker, do you have a favorite NHL video game? Do you play video games?
I used to play like the NHL games, but I don't play video games now. I've talked to like Parisi. I had him on my Straight from the Source podcast the other day, and he, during the second half of the podcast, Jim, was playing NHL 20 with his son while he was doing the podcast with me.
So now you know how I feel.
Yeah, and then 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I had Alex Stalock on, and he had just gotten an Xbox the day before for his son Simon, and Simon was in the background trying to get Alex to play with him. But I don't have any. I'm not a gamer, and when I used to play games when I was a kid, it was always sports games. Like I'm not like even now, if I had an Xbox, I wouldn't play stuff like Call of Duty and Fortnite and Pokemon and all those type of stuff. That's just, I've never been that. Like, I don't even like those type of movies. Like I can't, anything that requires a good imagination, I don't like it just, those type of movies. Like I'm not into stuff like Lord of the Rings and what was the show that was on forever on HBO that just ended?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that stuff, I can't concentrate it. I can't concentrate. I don't understand it. My attention span's bad. I'd rather be playing like I'm the type of person that could be on in the background, and I'll just have it as background music and be playing like Dice with Buddies on my phone or something.
You're weird.
Yes.
From Ralph Wiggum, would it be worth the Wild's time to inquire about Matt Murray in Pittsburgh, as they seem to be favoring Tristan Jarry in net?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be smart of Bill Guerin to at least do his due diligence and check in on a lot of the teams that have multiple goalies. Teams like Columbus, Florida, the Rangers, Pittsburgh. But again, everything here that Bill Guerin decides has to do with what he thinks of Kaapo Kähkönen eventually. Like if he thinks Kaapo Kähkönen is the goalie of the future, but is really a year or two away from being the goalie of the future, you can't, if you all of a sudden trade for a young goaltender from another team thinking that he's the goalie of the future. Now Murray would be in a different category because Murray's an established goaltender, but another goalie from another team that is going to step into that role, then what you're saying is eventually we're getting rid of Kähkönen, that you were going to trade him. So that's the biggest question that I have right now. The one thing that I will say that is very apparent to me when you look at goaltenders in the NHL is it's much better to have guys on short-term deals and even roll it over every 3 or 4 or 5 years and get yourself into a position where you sign a guy for 10, 11, 12 million a year, multiple years, because they eventually just crack. I mean, it's just unsustainable to be an elite goalie forever in the NHL. You see guys go in waves. I mean, Jake Allen was an absolute stud. I mean, you look at that year that they beat the Wild in the playoffs, the Blues, and Jake Allen hasn't been the same goaltender since. And we've seen that with a lot of guys in the NHL. And so, I mean, heck, look at Vegas this year. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury has been a stud for them the last couple of years. And what happens is that they go and acquire Robin Lehner because they were really concerned about the way that Marc-Andre Fleury played this season,
Right. Let's do 2 more Twitter questions. Thanks again to Brandon. Thank you to everyone who listens to this show and the network. We really do appreciate it. Remind people that these are free shows and they will fill your day, and you can wear them as you take walks or ride bikes or sit and stare out the window or play with your pets. This is a great entertainment source because we have so many good people on the network, including all of our new outdoor shows. Check them out, please. From Mark Benshoof, can you provide your best case scenario for hockey? And he means by best for hockey, not just trying to fit it all in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I genuinely think that at some point they just got to probably wipe out the season, and I just don't want them pushing this season back to a point where next season's affected.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it would be absolutely foolish to start in November and play 25 sets of back-to-backs, right?
Yep.
It would be dangerous for the players too, let alone just, I don't think, a great product for fans to watch. I just think that we have to get the world around us safe before we just worry about something as trivial as just getting sports back. And I know that sports can be a great diversion for all of us, and maybe fans do want to sit at home and watch games played in North Dakota, in front of empty stands and things like that. But I just right now don't think that stuff is feasible. But I will say I don't see how they return with any sort of semblance of a regular season. And if that's the case, the Wild could very well be screwed. I mean, that's why I just remember thinking that they needed to go 3-0 on that California trip. Now, obviously, I had no clue about the coronavirus. I was just thinking, like that in the playoff race that they were in, that they had to go 3-0 in California. Again, coronavirus not having nothing to do with this. But now you look at it, and I remember just being very critical of the decision to cancel practice in San Jose when they didn't have a morning skate against LA, because I've seen this book written a gazillion times by this team. When the Wild don't practice and then don't have a morning skate, they get killed. And so if I bet on sports, I would put everything I owned on the LA Kings that night in LA, and the Wild were absolute garbage, and that's what's going to potentially cause them from not playing in the playoff by them just basically mailing in that game in a very important playoff race. And so we very well could have seen the last of the Minnesota Wild this season, even if the NHL returns. Let's put it that way.
Let's wrap it up with kind of a nice question from Will Tomlinson. What's the best moment in Wild history that you both have witnessed? I know what mine is. You go first.
Well, I mean, to me, it was the entire 2014 playoffs. The game where Granlund scored that incredible goal cutting from the middle. Best individual effort I think I've ever seen from a Wild player. That whole shift by Granlund. And then, Game 6 where Parise had the 4-point game and it was just absolutely unbelievable and scored the winning goal. And then Game 7, obviously coming back from 4 1-goal deficits and then getting a Nino Niederreiter winner. That to me was the best thing most exciting thing that I've covered in the Minnesota Wild uniform. That whole playoff series was awesome. I was thinking the other day, too, Jim, do you remember how impressed you and I were in the press conference after Game 5 when the Wild fell down 3-2 in that series, and Mike Yeo refused to rip on the linesman that allowed Stastny to be offsides for the winning goal, and he just refused to whine in the post-game press conference. He goes, "We lost the game. There's nothing we could do. Let's go back to game and win Game 6." And I think that was a turning point of the series because we were all ready to destroy the NHL for what was an obvious offsides call on the winner. And Mike Yeo, like he often did, was really level-headed. And I think that was the key to that series.
Absolutely. And I will say just that Niederreiter goal was the biggest moment I've witnessed, the coolest moment I've witnessed, and also the way that play developed. I mean, God, I'm blanking on the guy's name.
Brizgalov?
No, his two linesmates.
Brodziak and Heatley.
Heatley, yeah. I could not think of Danny Heatley's name. Heatley and Brodziak moving the puck up and Niederreiter sniping it in that situation was just brilliant.
And just Brodziak being the only one really in the building that knew the puck went in at first, and the announcers like sheepishly reacting to Brodziak going up and down.
Yeah.
And even Nino will tell you today that he didn't know that it definitely went in. He heard the ping because it hit the back bar by the camera and out, but it was Brodziak jumping up and down that was absolutely what gave Nino the ability to believe that thing went in. So
yeah. Good stuff.
By the way, I did see one question on Twitter where somebody asked me who the Wild player rep is, and that's Devin Dubnyk. He's the Players Association rep. I'm just kind of going through Twitter real quick, make sure there's nothing else. Somebody asked why I switched from covering the Panthers, so that could be an entire show.
Will be.
Basically, the genesis of our 250 Russo-Souhan shows is me in 250 shows finally maybe putting it all together and explaining to you why I left. So we'll talk about that on another week.
We'll save that for a slow week if we ever have any. Thanks to Michael, thanks to Brandon, thanks to all of our listeners, and Grey Duck Vodka and Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent Champlin. We will be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive